everybody. I really should come up with some sort of catchy intro or something to greet people. I'll figure that out later. Probably not going to be a long one today. Just wanted to do I didn't even introduce what this is. Hi, welcome to the Star Wars Podcast Racer. I'm Tyler. This is episode 2, and already I have apparently gone off the rails. Happy Halloween, by the way. I'm releasing this here on Halloween 2025. And we got a nice and spooky episode today. It's probably not going to be too long. I just want to talk a little bit about some stuff. I am, as soon as I started, my cat wanted to spend some time with me, I guess. So as soon as I mentioned her, she got up and left. I'm leaving that in. Anyways, hi, once again. So, Halloween and Star Wars. That's two things that feel completely different from each other, I'm sure. But you'd actually be surprised how much spooky things go on in Star Wars sometimes. Just going to talk about a few things today. Just kind of a nice, light, easy talk. And yes, it is just me. I know I said I was hoping that there'd be another guest with me for my second episode, but you're stuck with me once again. So, it's another episode you can skip. No, but seriously. Let's start with just talking about some Halloween-y type things that you might not know is in Star Wars if you're not as into it as I am. Let's start with one of the more common ones. Witches. Witches are a thing in Star Wars. They have been a thing in Star Wars since, the 80s, really. The Ewok movies. The Ewok movies had a witch on Endor, which George Lucas knew what he was doing there. If you don't get that, if you don't understand that, read the Bible, I guess. Yeah, that's what you come to my Star Wars podcast for me to tell you to read the Bible. But that is a biblical reference, actually. But yeah, there are witches. Now, early on, they just, like in the Ewok movie and such, they just kind of did some generic magic. But once they were introduced reintroduced in the expanded universe in the novel Courtship of Princess Leia, we kind of got the witches that use the Force, and that's kind of how they're mostly known now. The Witches of Dathomir are the ones that are best known, also called the Night Sisters. They've been in Star Wars since. The Night Sisters have been there since the 90s with the Courtship of Princess Leia. They really came to prominence in the Clone Wars series with a very memorable arc and ties to Darth Maul and Asajj Ventress. And they've come back in the live-action Ahsoka series, which I will be getting back to. But that one heavily involves witches, and there's other witches too. The Acolyte introduced. My cat is being weird. The Acolyte introduced witches as well. There, a completely different sect, a little bit more benevolent than the Night Sisters. But yeah, witches have been in Star Wars almost since the beginning. And while I said before they did start in the Ewok movies kind of more generic magic, like, it is explicitly made clear every other time after that it's the Force. They're using the Force. Any kind of magic type thing is going through the Force. It's just different than how the Jedi or the Sith would interact with the Force. It's complex. And a lot of people really like it. There's a lot of people that really enjoy the witch aesthetic, and the incantations and spells and things like that, and I am not one of those people. I have no issue with them being there. Like they're established. I'm not like, well, this is weird. No, they're an established thing. They have a place. It does make sense with the Force and everything. Yeah, I've just never really been a witchy kind of person. I understand a lot of people enjoy the aesthetic and love seeing the incantations. I'm not one of those people. I enjoy a lot of horror type things. Witches aren't one of them. But hey, yeah, more power to the people that do enjoy it. So that is the first kind of Halloween type thing I kind of wanted to bring up that not everybody knows, especially if you just watch the movies. Another thing I could mention is werewolves, right? Because there is werewolves in Star Wars. Sort of. There are werewolf masks. Because in the cantina scene in the original movie, in order to fill it out, they needed to just kind of use whatever mask they could. And in the original, the non-special edition version, in the original, there is just straight up a dude wearing a werewolf mask as an alien. But yeah, I'm not going to get into that. Same thing with what's their names? The Davorian? Devororian? I cannot pronounce it. The devil guys, like the demon guys. Similar type situation there. It's just kind of funny. He's like, oh yeah, the literal devil there hanging out in the cantina. But no, let's talk about some more Halloween specific or horror type specific things in Star Wars. The first thing there's really two things I wanted to talk about here. The first is I believe at this point it's kind of an annual or semi-annual tradition of doing these mini-series. I've only read one, and I just read it this year. They're comic series aimed at kids, actually. Let me explain a little bit. I'll back up a little bit and explain this. I'm kind of rambling, but Star Wars Adventures is a comic line specifically aimed at kids, separate from the standard Marvel comic line. Star Wars Adventures, it was published by IDW. It is now published by Dark Horse. But pretty much ever since the Star Wars comics restarted over at Marvel, the Star Wars Adventures have been going, I believe, pretty much simultaneously. And so over on that line, which isn't really talked about much, but over on that line, they like to do these Vader's Castle comics. There was Tales from Vader's Castle. That's the one I read. I believe there's like Return to Vader's Castle. A lot of things is kind of named like that. Basically, it's each one's like a 5-issue miniseries where there's an overarching story, but in the overarching story, each issue will also just kind of tell its own spooky tale. And again, I only read the first Tales from. Was it Tales from or Tales of? Oh, now I'm blanking. Oh, I should be prepared before I do these things. I really should be like writing writing an actual outline and stuff. Tales of Vader's Palace? Oh, whoops. I misspelled it. This is a podcast where I am actively Googling my information. Tales from Vader's Castle. That's what it was. Did I say Palace earlier? Whatever. Tales from Vader's Castle. That's what it was. The first one, the one I read. It was written by Cavan Scott. So, there we go. I can actually tell you information. But yeah, Tales from Vader's Castle was really good, actually. Again, it's aimed at kids. So it's kind of like spooky stories, but nothing inappropriate for kids. There were the first two in particular I really liked. What was the first one? Again, I read it over this last week. The first one was it was Chopper from Rebels, getting possessed by an old Sith ghost, basically. That was pretty cool. The second one was the best in my opinion because that was Count Dooku basically becoming a vampire, like a Mynock type of vampire. If you know what a Mynock is, it's the thing from Empire Strikes Back that was sucking on the Falcon, like they were like the bat type things. But yeah, basically energy vampire. So if you don't know what's amazing about that, Count Dooku was played by the late great Christopher Lee. Wow, I blanked for a second. But the late great Christopher Lee, and he played Count Dracula in the old Hammer films of the 50s and 60s. So it's pretty great having Count Dooku here as like a vampire too. Great story. Third one was a little whatever. Fourth one was great, and then the fifth one was just basically overarching the thing. But each one was like a little bit different, a different genre of spooky story. All taking place in a very spooky place, which is, of course, Vader's castle. A similar thing to that would be the Lego Star Wars. Once again, I'm bringing back Lego Star Wars, aren't I? But the Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales short film from 2021 that they did on Disney Plus. Similarly, they go to Vader's castle, and that one it's only 3 tales, but like 3 kind of spooky tales. Similar idea, but this one's a little bit more serious, and it's actually canon from what I understand. So it's pretty cool. Honestly, I recommend that book series, and I'm sure the others are good too. I haven't read the other, like, again, Return to Vader's Castle or whatever. I might next year. But just Tales from Vader's Castle, honestly, I give it a thumbs up. It might be made for kids, but it's still fun. So that leads me to the last thing I wanted to talk about today. Something that is not made for kids in the slightest. So full disclosure, I had some plans for this week that actually had nothing to do with Halloween. Again, I'm not planning on making this podcast strictly weekly or whatever, but I did want to do a couple of, like, first few weeks kind of to do as quickly as I can, just to kind of get some stuff out there. But I had a plan for this week, and that kind of got shot. So I decided, hey, it's Halloween. I'll do some spooky things. I'll talk about that comic and the Witches of Dathomir and stuff. And then I remembered, there's that one book I never read. That old EU book called Death Troopers. My cat! As soon as I mentioned Death Troopers, my cat just booked it. She understands. So Death Troopers was a novel written by Joe Schreiber in 2009. I was 16 when this came out, and I was not into it. I was like, I'm passing on this book. I was reading a lot of Star Wars books at the time. I was not reading this one. And I am very glad I didn't, because I would have been absolutely scared. Let me explain here. I like zombies. I do. I love zombie media. If you know me from my other channel, you know I love Resident Evil. I love zombies. I thought this was kind of cool, a cool idea, like Star Wars zombies. I was like, this is a Star Wars story about zombies. I was wrong. I was so wrong. This is a zombie story set in Star Wars. That is a very important distinction. Because, holy crap, this thing was dark, bleak, and gross. I guess I will give a bit of a content warning, oddly enough. Well, first off, kind of a spoiler warning, too. I'm not going to explain everything that happens, but I'm definitely going to be spoiling plot points as I explain some of this book. This is kind of the main event today. But definitely content warning if you don't want to hear anything about stuff that zombies do. Just, I understand if you want to back out, but holy cow, I gotta talk about this book. So again, I went in just expecting a fun zombie story in Star Wars, or rather, a fun Star Wars story about zombies, and well, the book is set on a prison barge, an Imperial prison barge. This takes place sometime before New Hope. I believe within a year, maybe exactly a year, but it's relatively close to the original movie taking place. And it's set on an Imperial prison barge. And this place is not good by any means. Everybody's kind of evil, except for the doctor and I guess some of the inmates. Because two of the inmates are teenage boys who are only there because of their father. And I have to say, this is actually something I really liked because of just... It's not even really mentioned. Nobody in the book thinks it's even weird that there are children on this prison barge. They're just treated like prisoners. In fact, it is even said much later on that the Imperials are taught, basically, the Imperial prison guards are taught that in an Imperial prison, there are no children, there's only prisoners. And, I mean, the Empire is evil. That kind of shows you, just very casually, just how evil they can be. And I really did actually like that part. But yeah, it kind of focuses on these two teenage boys. The oldest, I think, is I picked up on 16 or 17. Maybe a little older, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure, because he's still living with his dad. I'm pretty sure he's probably 16 or 17. The youngest, the younger one, is 13. Very specifically 13. And these boys are put through hell. I'm not saying that as a curse word either or anything. No, it's almost pretty literal hell that they were put through. This Imperial prison barge comes across a Star Destroyer, a derelict Star Destroyer, just kind of drifting in space. It's kind of weird, whatever. So they send some stormtroopers over to investigate. So they go over to investigate. They find some weird things. This very first thing I saw, or I read, that I was like, okay, this is not going to be a normal Star Wars book. One of the Imperials that head over finds a wall. On this wall of lungs, human lungs, active human lungs. It's a bunch of human lungs on this wall, still connected to a larynx, with a speaker connected to the larynx. The lungs are all breathing. And the speakers, when they're turned on, you can hear just screams. Yeah, that doesn't really feel like Star Wars here, guys. It was pretty intense right away, but I actually still enjoyed that. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is kind of serious, but okay, this is nice and creepy. I do kind of enjoy this kind of stuff in a zombie book, at least. Then it kept going. So, needless to say, there's some bad stuff going on in that Star Destroyer. They head back to the prison ship, and they start getting sick. Well, that's weird. And they all start dying. And then other people start getting sick. Prisoners start getting sick. And it spreads throughout the entire ship. Within a few chapters, there are literally 6 people left alive on the entire ship. The 2 boys in their cell, the doctor who discovers that she's immune somehow. There is some immunity. She's immune. One of the captains, one of the very, very brutal captains of the Imperials, and then 2 prisoners who are in solitary confinement at the very bottom of the ship. Everybody else is dead. Oh, okay. Actually, no. There is for a little bit. There is one other life before they establish that there's only 6 people left. There is one other life. I will get to that later because I just, oh my. So the 2 prisoners at the very bottom of the ship, or I should, okay, let me go back actually for a second. So the captain, the Imperial captain, is an absolute horrible person who is trying to escape on his own. The 2 boys are trying to escape. So they're on their way. The doctor sees where they're all headed, thanks to the computer. So she heads down to go and get the 2 prisoners that were in solitary. Turns out, as she heads down there, the 2 prisoners that are in solitary are Han and Chewie. Finally, something from Star Wars. I was so relieved. It is kind of a relief when you're like, oh, thank goodness, it's Han and Chewie. Oh, I will admit, a little bit of the tension arguably kind of leaves when you have like the 2 established people that have to show up in A New Hope show up, but I didn't care. I was just happy to see Han and Chewie finally. It was like finding like a safe, like getting to a safe room in Resident Evil for like you're just like, okay, I know these 2 are safe. We're good. They're not entirely safe though, because Chewie almost becomes a zombie. and you might notice something. I have not mentioned that there's been zombies this entire time. Like I've said, this is a zombie book, but there haven't been zombies. And I will again full credit here to the writing. The tension and the build-up. They don't show the zombies until even later after this, but you know there's something going on, of course. So the doctor was able to get a cure thanks to her immunity. She was able to figure out a cure. Gives it to Han immediately. Han's okay. Gives it to Chewie at the same time that Chewie becomes fully infected with the virus. So basically, the virus and Chewie kind of like fighting each other, whatever. And it's very interesting that you get to see inside of Chewie's mind here. And you get to hear the virus. The virus appears to be very sentient. And also apparently a bit of a hive mind with these zombies. And almost turns Chewbacca into a zombie. But thankfully, of course, Chewie is safe. I was much relieved. So we have our 6 survivors trying to make it out. Apparently there's only 2 escape pods on this prison transport, which is another thing that like shows how evil the Empire is, because that's not even enough for like that's like just enough for the higher ups on this Imperial prison barge. Like just like the warden, the doctor, the captain, like that's basically it. That's all there is room for. So in case of an emergency, all the prisoners and all of like the stormtroopers and stuff were essentially expected to die. That's I mean, again, it's not even brought up or mentioned. It's just, yeah, there's 2 escape pods and there's only room for like 2 people in each one, and it's I don't know. I found that kind of powerful, even though they didn't bring attention to it. But anyways, they realize they have to get to the Star Destroyer, go back to the Star Destroyer, and get one of the ships that are in there. So they do that. Of course, it's not easy. They then have to go through like basically the entire other side of the Star Destroyer. And as it turns out, around that time is when the zombies come out in full force. And oh boy, do the zombies come out in full force. Turns out the zombies want to escape. They can use blasters. And in fact, it seems that the hungrier they become, the better their aim is. And yes, they are hungry. They are the flesh-eating zombie kind of ones. Oh boy. And they show that in great detail, and that's kind of where I have to get to this point. Obviously, of course, Han and Chewie escape, and most everybody else dies. this is where I have to get to kind of where my issue comes with this, because this is an incredibly well written book, and even with its weird, messed up stuff, it's good for a horror book. But I have some issues with it, just for my own personal, I guess, values. I don't even know how you'd say this. Just my own tastes. It near the once the zombies start coming, again, it's great, but some of the parts just weren't fun for me. And to me, zombies are kind of a fun monster type thing. So I want things to kind of be fun, and some parts just were not fun, especially when it became to, like, children. Only one of the boys survives. The youngest. The oldest gets his... in explicit detail explained how his head, like half of his head, gets blown in. It's disgusting, honestly. I'm not even like a fun disgusting, just to me, a disgusting. And what I hated even more was, like I said, there was another, like a seventh that was there very briefly, and that was a Wookiee cub. It said explicitly that he's probably around a toddler, a young Wookiee who's on the prison transport. And yeah, that's another thing that they don't really bring much attention to. They apparently had toddlers on this prison transport that they just treated like prisoners. And yeah, the Empire is evil. You see this poor Wookiee cub just with his dead parents trying to get the parents to come out. The parents are dead though, so the cub doesn't understand. And then it's basically said that it's attacked by zombies not long afterwards. Not shown in detail. Okay, I was kind of happy with that. I was like, okay, very sad. I think this is a little much, but I'm willing to whatever. The cub comes back and basically tries to eat Han, because now the cub is a zombie, and Chewie has to, in explicit detail, blast the head off of this toddler. Again, I hate that. I hate that. That's not fun. That's not a fun, spooky thing for me. That's just horrible. And I understand for some people, like, it adds to, like, the realism, whatever. This is Star Wars. This is a Star Wars zombie story. I don't care about realism. I'm okay with, of course, like, whatever. Like, when it's going to, like, the gory details of, like, one of the prison inmates or the guards, like, dealing with that, I'm cool with that. That's kind of fun to me. I don't care. When you start doing that with children, and even if it is a Wookiee, it is a child. Even if, it doesn't have to be human here. I don't like that. That's not fun. I almost put down the book there, honestly. It took me a little bit to be like, well, at least I can finish it for this. It did get better for me after that, even though it got to cannibals. And I'm like, at one point I just had to stop for a second and be like, I'm sorry, this is a Star Wars story with cannibals? And yeah, no, real human cannibals. They don't go into detail about them eating anyone. They're just kind of like, yeah, we ate some people. But, wow. This book was insane. Like, again, I don't think I can... I don't necessarily recommend it. Again, I liked a lot of it. It was incredibly well written. But, like, as a Star Wars... I would say this. As a Star Wars book, I cannot recommend it. Because it's just not a Star Wars book, really, to me. To me, it's a horror zombie book that just happens to take place in the Star Wars universe. But there was a lot I did like about it, though. Again, for the most part, I enjoyed myself. There's just a couple of those moments that were focusing on the kids and stuff that it was too much for me. Again, I don't want to see kids in danger like that, or horrifically murdered. That is, I don't like that. Okay, I've been rambling about that for a while. So there is a prequel book. He did write a prequel book, and I might give that a shot next year. Just better not be any kids in it. I do find it kind of hilarious that this book isn't canon anymore because it was in the old canon, the old EU. But I do like to imagine just again this apparently this was canon in the old EU, and it was not long before New Hope. So it's just imagining Han and Chewie just thinking about the zombies they just saw last week as they're taking Luke and Obi-Wan to the Death Star. It's a funny thought, but the legacy of the Death Troopers, though, that has continued on in the new canon. Actually, the virus that I didn't even mention that the zombies were caused by a virus that the Empire was creating as a weapon. Because duh. But yeah, apparently the virus was mentioned. I think I heard at one point. Like they didn't show the zombies; they just mentioned the name of the virus, among other viruses or something that the Empire was working on. That was a nice little Easter egg. More specifically, though, the name Death Troopers was reused in Rogue One. The movie Rogue One, the stormtroopers that you see, like the ones that are like all in black and they have like the weird garbled voices, like they don't speak English that you hear. They speak in these weird mechanical whatevers. Those are called Death Troopers. They are not zombies. They're just like enhanced stormtroopers essentially, but. I guess Gareth Edwards just really liked the name and just reused the name. Which fair enough, it is a nice name, Death Troopers. But the cooler thing for me though, the cooler reference to the Death Troopers was when they sort of made a comeback unexpectedly in Ahsoka. I guess spoilers for Ahsoka if you haven't seen it yet and care. But yeah, in the final episode, the witches actually resurrect these dead stormtroopers to attack. So there is zombie stormtroopers, a very different kind of zombie stormtroopers, which I actually kind of like because it's almost like the old voodoo zombies, like the original voodoo zombies. That's what the original zombies were like voodoo magic. So having like these witches, these force witches, using their dark side powers or whatever to make these zombies that obey them. That was kind of cool. It was a really cool scene and wasn't gory or anything like that, which I really appreciated, especially after reading the book. I would say those are probably my favorite versions of like a zombie stormtrooper because, yeah, you don't have the horrible child murder. Well, that was kind of a bummer to end the Halloween special on, right? I could do this again next year. There is actually a shockingly large amount of like Halloween or scary type stories. There was an entire Goosebumps inspired kids series of books in the 90s that was made for Star Wars. I kid you not. I should read those at some point. But yeah, that's for this year at least. That's it. You know, I needed to tell someone about that insane zombie Star Wars book. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, I just wanted to kind of like just talk about some stuff here. Since it's Halloween, you know, I hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween if you celebrate, or you know, just have a good day in general if not. But yeah, I will hopefully be back. I'm hoping next week I will be back and with somebody else this time. So a little bit more structured probably than these last couple. Like once again, I was like, oh, I'll just like record for like 10 minutes and have an incredibly short episode, and now this is like almost 40 minutes again. Whatever. But thanks guys for listening. Hope you guys tune in next time. Hope these aren't too terrible. and may the force be with you.